Welcome back to the field between. Oh shit! It sounds hot. Hold on.
Sounds hot?
Yeah, the mic
What does that mean?
is the gain's up too high. Okay, welcome back to the field between. My name is Ahmed,
My name is Yasmin.
and it's another episode.
That was a really good opening.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a lot to chat with you today. We're talking a little bit more about Syria, a little bit about Palestine, a little bit about a local assassin who was found in Pennsylvania. So we've
Western Pennsylvania.
Western Pennsylvania, which apparently is
home, the assassin capital of the United States.
Right. First the assassination attempt against Trump, and now this. He's not from Pennsylvania though.
Oh.
He's from Maryland, but he was hanging out in a McDonald's in Western Pennsylvania for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to start with updates?
Yeah, I was just going to start with like how our weekend was and stuff before we get into news stuff.
How was your weekend?
Our weekend was very, very busy. Cafe is in full swing.
Mm-hmm.
So Friday, we hosted a potluck with a group called Rangoli, which is like a queer South Asian group here in Pittsburgh that we really love.
You got to speak up.
And we enjoy collaborating with.
Yep.
And we played Carom, which is so fun. I'd never played before.
Yeah.
It's like pool, but a board game version of pool, essentially. You just like flick little pieces around.
Mm-hmm.
I had beginner's luck. This kind of reminds me of myself bowling. I'm pretty bad and uncoordinated, but sometimes I get lucky. Mm-hmm. So I got lucky for like one turn. And then
you cleaned up that turn.
Yeah.
That was
I got like 3 points or something.
Yeah,
Crazy.
That was frustrating.
Yeah. And then I didn't get anything else the rest of the time, but my team won. So that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else? It was fun.
Then we had another potluck the next day that we hosted.
We divided the
Arabs.
We divided the diasporas. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't make it actually to the Arab diaspora potluck or most of it because I had
You weren't invited.
I wasn't invited. This is my home. I'm always invited.
Mm-mm.
If you can make chai for the Desi diaspora potluck, I can be here for the Arab diaspora potluck. Having said that, I had to do some work because it's the end of the semester and I'm very busy. But yeah, tell us, how did that go?
Good.
Tell us a little more because it's been cool. I think it's come out of a moment where there's like a lot of hope or like desire for like Arab Americans to kind of like create more community and solidarity.
Yeah, it was. It was just typical potluck. We didn't play any games.
Yeah, you didn't have Carom.
Did someone? Was it during that someone did ask if we had a deck of playing cards and
We do.
Oh. I told them we don't.
No, we do. You should have told them we do. Next time, just so you know, they're right there. We've got 2 full decks.
So we all sat around and silently ate.
Got it. No, I heard the food was very good. It was mostly
good.
Gone by the time I got home.
And it was also happening at around the same time that more events in Syria were unfolding and the rebel groups kind of went in and fully took over Aleppo and Damascus and just fully took control of the country. And Assad had left at that point, I think. So people were very excited. So I think it came at a very good moment and kind of to be around a group of people who were feeling hopeful about a situation. Yeah, it felt nice.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but that's lovely timing. That's like a really lovely timing to be having like a community event, especially when like there's been so much happening in the Middle East, especially in Palestine, that is hard. Yeah. Good to have something hopeful.
Yeah.
Great. And then Sunday we went to see the poet Musab Abu Toha speak on Pittsburgh's campus.
Yep.
The SJP invited him. SJP is doing such a great job at Pitt.
You got to speak up.
They like fundraise everything themselves. They totally coordinated the entire event. They're the ones who invited him. And it was really, really special and cool to hear him speak. It feels like an important kind of like witnessing and, helpful to hear his story. And then we were like super, super honored. We just ended up kind of randomly driving him home. And, whenever I say that Ahmed is the one driving, but nevertheless.
Yeah.
And his hotel was close to our house. So he ended up coming over afterwards for tea with one of his friends and some of our friends. And it was really special spending time with him.
That was very nice. I liked the reading a lot. It was poetry. Obviously, like he was reading his own poetry, but it's very frequently interrupted with firsthand accounts of things that he had seen, and he showed us footage of like his hometown in Gaza as it was being bombed, and it was just very like much interrupted with a lot of firsthand accounts like that, which I mean, I think everyone there already kind of knows what's going on, but it's still compelling and
the
very
university
captivating.
received some pushback on him visiting, so it's important for events to happen like for that reason too. Yeah, I mean, it was just like not very serious. It's very stupid, but they did receive like a couple of outside complaints saying that it was biased or whatever, which is bullshit. But yeah, I had a little bit.
But it was nice. He made us tea.
He did.
He came over. He made us tea.
So sweet and so Palestinian. He like carries sage with him everywhere.
Yeah.
To make sage tea, which is like just such a lovely connection to like. Yeah, I mean, I think he actually got it from an Egyptian brand, but like the idea.
No. The tea was Egyptian. The sage was like Palestinian.
Oh, I see. Good. We actually have sage tea here, but he elected to make his own, which is fair enough.
He's very serious about it.
Yeah, he's very serious about it, and we were honored to have it, so we appreciated it.
Yep.
He was a really funny guy. It's so, I don't want to like mythologize these people that are just human beings, but it is like so humbling to see someone just like be a person and still be willing to relate to people when they've just like gone through unimaginable trauma.
We just hung out.
Yeah, like just like making jokes. Like I handed him the sugar and like there was like a small spoon. He was like, "Is this for children?" I got him a regular spoon, which is cute. Like I feel like a lot of people like very heavily sugared tea in a lot of the world.
He reminded me a lot of another Palestinian friend of mine who's just a guy who just like loves to like just joke
hang
around.
Out and, I was going to give a little more background just for if folks aren't familiar with him. He was born in the Al-Shati refugee camp in Gaza. And he kind of became well known for founding the first English-only public access library in Gaza, which he called the Edward Said Library. Unfortunately, that library has since been destroyed. And as probably most listeners know, Edward Said is a really important post-colonial and literary theorist who was a professor at Columbia University, Palestinian, from a Palestinian Christian background. So really cool that the library was named after him.
Yeah.
And the first time I heard about him, if I'm being honest, was in November of 2023. So like a week after October 7th or a month after October 7th, he was detained by the Israeli army. They kind of like kidnapped him for a few days as he was trying to like cross the Rafah border into Egypt with his family.
Yeah.
And then like because he was a well-known poet, he was, I mean, luck is relative here, but he had like a lot of people mobilizing on his behalf, and he was physically harmed by the Israeli army, but thankfully was let go eventually and was able to cross into Egypt with his family. Mm-hmm. His I think one of his sons has American citizenship, so he was able to evacuate.
Yep.
He was also really good friends with Rafat al-Rarir. Am I saying his last name correctly?
Rafat al-Rarir.
Al-Rarir. Who I think probably most people have heard of, became really well known for this one poem he had that I'm actually going to read just to share with you if you haven't heard it before, about a kite. And he was killed in an Israeli airstrike. So he talked about their friendship. I think we're coming up on the anniversary or just past the anniversary of Rafat's death. So he's with a lot of people in their memories. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm just going to quickly read a poem by Mossab and then a poem by Rafat. Just figured I'd share that with people for context.
Sure. Just make sure your mic stays at the mouth and speak up.
Stop.
No, you got to do it because there's too much editing.
Talk. You have to edit me saying this out.
No, you gotta speak up.
Okay, fine. Actually, there's a lot of, this is bringing me back full circle. There's a lot of tech issues on Sunday, but Mossab persevered. So this is a poem by the man we were lucky to meet and have tea with, named Mossab, called On a Starless Night. On a starless night, I toss and turn. The earth shakes and I fall out of bed. I look out the window. The house next door no longer stands. It's lying like an old carpet on the floor of the earth, trampled by missiles, fat slippers flying off legless feet. I never knew my neighbor still had that small TV, that old painting still hung on their walls, that their cat had kittens. A lot of just sort of like intimacy there and the heartbreak of like just seeing something right next door that used to be private that is now just exposed, and the sense of like clearly he knew these neighbors but hadn't been in their home for a while, and sort of implied that they were killed and that he was pretty close to being killed in that strike. So it's a poem by Mossab, and this is the poem that I know a lot of you have heard, but I just wanted to read it, by Rafat. Oh, it just went away. Let me find it again. Al-Warir. And you may have seen that people have been having kind of remembrances of Rafat by flying kites, and this poem is the reason for that. It's called If I Must Die. If I must die, you must live to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings, make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite, my kite you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there, bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope, let it be a tale. So that last stanza you see kind of circulating a lot, especially after his death, in terms of remembrances. And I know this is obvious, but just sort of like been thinking a lot about like these were English professors in Gaza, and just like these were whole intellectual networks that are now like fragmented, and like whole like bodies of knowledge and libraries that are gone. I mean, they're not gone, thankfully. There are still people who are still with us, but it is just kind of, I mean, there's so many layers of devastation, but even these kind of like less graphic layers of like the people who had relationship with their students, like not just about the students who have been killed, but about those relationships and that kind of everyday life. It just, I don't know. Yeah, it feels very humbling to see someone talk about their experiences, especially in a university setting, knowing that their university setting is gone now.
Yeah, he talked about that a lot, about students who were particularly special to him being killed. And again, those were some of the stories that he shared at the poetry reading. I think what I found was interesting was when we were kind of just talking to him, he just insisted, he's like, I'm not like a revolutionary. I'm not an activist. I am a teacher, and I think he just has a little bit of resentment for not for what he's doing or any of the writing. Like, I think this is his way of communicating or anything, but as being cast as a voice of a revolution, maybe. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear his thoughts on that, but it kind of, that's the sense I got, is that he's saying, I'm essentially a scribe, or I'm documenting things that are happening, and I'm not saying anything controversial. I'm just speaking about the lives of Palestinians and about
his own life.
Yeah, and about destruction, about my own life. He's not actually, he doesn't advocate for like, he's like, I need a one state solution or two. He doesn't like talk about that at all. He literally is just talking about what is happening before everyone's eyes. And a lot of people choose to see that as inherently political or anti-establishment or whatever, something, right? Because I think the implication of it is scary to them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it seems like the resentment comes from like the fact that he is just a person talking about his experiences, that he is, an artist, he's a writer.
Yeah.
And I guess it just shows like who has the freedom to be seen as just like a person versus just your very existence, and like your daring to continue to exist makes you a political figure, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he never set off to be a politician. He's not a politician. He's a writer, and he's just writing about his life. I mean, he's a Gazan, Yeah, I think that's a good assessment. Yeah, that's all I had in terms of our weekend. Anything else to add before we talk a little bit about Syria?
No.
Great. I don't have that much to say about Syria, but I do have a really fun Thomas Friedman article for us to dissect in a sec.
Yeah.
But the one thing I did want to say, there's been lots of hot takes back and forth about, the role of imperialism and the role of terrorism, those are pretty much the two camps as far as I can see. And I thought about going into detail about that because I had been really interested in reading a lot, but I'm not a Syria expert, so I just don't think it's appropriate or helpful for me to do so. The one thing that I did want to kind of share, because I just feel like I was so uneducated about this, and I'm sure that others might feel the same, it's just like how horrifying it's been to learn about the like really extensive prison network in Syria. It's just like so horrific and kind of just intense and crazy. So Syria was liberated from Assad al-Bashar, and I knew that like Assad, like, you know, was
Bashar
a
al-Assad.
but sorry, Bashar al-Assad. Yeah. So second, this is like the second Assad. His father was also in control. So it's been like decades of their rule.
Yep.
And I knew that like he had used chemical weapons against his people, and I knew that like there was a massive Syrian refugee crisis. But I do think we have goldfish memories, or at least I do. Like I forgot how bad the refugee crisis was because just so much has happened over the years, and because like he was reinstated essentially, or he didn't, wasn't disposed of power after like a pretty major attempt to do so. But it's the largest refugee crisis since World War II. There's 14 million Syrians who've had to leave Syria, who are everywhere globally, many of whom are trying to go home now, especially from neighboring Turkey, which is like really moving to see. And I do feel like I really want to listen and honor Syrians who are saying that literally nothing could be worse. Whatever comes next, and none of us know for sure, nothing could be worse than Assad.
Yeah.
And I feel like people who are saying otherwise, it kind of reminds me in a weird way of people who were like, well, Trump will be even worse for Palestinians. And I think Trump will be bad for a lot of things, but I just think that means that maybe you don't know how devastating Biden has been for Palestinians. Like, what could be more devastating than entire bloodlines being erased from the earth? Like, what is worse than that? Like, truly, I don't know,
I was talking to, after the event, I was talking to a friend of ours, and obviously sharing my, like, I'm obviously very happy for everyone, right? Everyone is, what people are celebrating is people being liberated, right? Assad being gone. They're celebrating people, them opening the jails and freeing prisoners who have been underground for decades. I haven't seen as much like praise and specifically for the different like military groups or rebel factions that are part of it. That might be part, but like what I've seen is just like the outcome or the end results as being the focus of celebration. I shared with this friend my kind of, obviously I would never, Assad being gone is a great thing. I just shared like some, not hesitation, but I was just like, oh man, I hope it continues to be good. And I can't say that I know that it will, right? I really want the momentum to continue on this like liberatory streak and for, something beautiful to be born out of it. I still have, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm still a little scared about some things here and there, right? So some reservations, but obviously I'm not gonna like sit here and be like, you shouldn't celebrate this. Like, no, this is definitely a cause for celebration. And I think he put it in like kind of a beautiful way. And he was just like, I think what's really good about this moment is that it is undefined, and it is, I think much like the Arab Spring, like it didn't work out, but it is a moment of possibility.
It's a moment of rupture.
And rupture and undefined possibility that people still have a chance to define. And we haven't felt a moment like that in the Arab world for a long time. And that is something special and something that should be held on to, I guess.
Yeah.
And so we'll see. Like,
and I think whatever comes next, I think that's like totally right. Like being awareness of that this is a moment of potential, and that whatever comes next, like nothing will be the same. It can't be, like everything has been changed a little bit regionally.
Yeah. I will say that the takes in diaspora have been just like unnecessarily vicious and at each other's throats, where like people are like calling people who are somewhat, cautious on this, or critical of some of the different groups. They're just like immediately saying like, you're Assadist, like you're an apologist for Assad, and they're like, whatever. And then like other people are saying like, oh no, you're a Zionist if you support this, and you're that. And it's just, it just doesn't feel productive.
I'm interested to hear that, because honestly, like I've seen only uniform takes from Syrians. Like I have a friend who's Christian Syrian. We've heard from a friend here who's Syrian that she has friends who are Druze who are celebrating. Yeah. I have only seen I've seen a lot of Daisies giving hot takes, which is kind of interesting.
Oh no, I don't mean
you don't mean Syrian diaspora.
I don't mean Syrian.
You mean like
sorry. I mean like
But I think it's
Arabs
telling that I haven't seen that
Muslims.
many diverse takes from Syrians themselves.
Yes.
And even like
all the Syrians we know, and like all the Syrians seem to be unanimously
like just like thrilled. I mean, and a lot of them also, like I didn't know this, but like people don't talk about politics because they're afraid of repercussions for their family members.
Yeah.
Like people are like posting about Syria for the first time ever.
Yeah.
But even like most of the Arabs that we know, I feel like have been cautiously optimistic. I think it's more Muslims that are doing hot takes that are
You
not
think so?
Arab. I mean, that's my read. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, actually, that sounds.
Yeah, and that doesn't
sounds
mean
true.
that it's like, I mean, I'm doing that too. So I'm not trying to say no one deserves to have a take if you're interested in the region or anything, but it is interesting to see that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's exceptions. Like, I don't want to generalize. It's just my personal network. But
Yeah.
but I was really happy to see that I only know this one guy. I'm not trying to make him representative of all Syrian Christians, but I was happy to see that he was excited and, because we've all been nervous about minorities. But I wanted to say a little bit more about the prisoners because I didn't know how bad that part of the situation was. Like, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But there were 150,000 Syrians who were incarcerated in Syria, many of whom have been liberated by the rebels. And some who were kept in just insane conditions. So there's one prison that is particularly notorious, the Sednaya prison. And it just, I don't know why I fell into this trap, but I just stayed up all last night, watching images and footage. And I won't go into too many graphic detail because I don't know how helpful that is. But a lot of the kind of imagery that we saw coming out of Guantanamo Bay, very similar torture techniques, but on a really massive systemized scale where people were being made to torture each other systematically, children that were born in the prison because women were raped. But the thing that I think I found most disturbing and just kind of so warped was some of the prisoners who were further down didn't know that they didn't know what time it was. They didn't know that what was Assad's father's name again?
Hafiz al-Assad.
They thought that Hafiz al-Assad was still in power. They didn't know that his son was now in power. They just were completely cut off from the world.
They thought Saddam's army had liberated them.
They thought Saddam's army was coming to liberate them.
There are videos.
They'd never seen smartphones before.
Yeah, there are videos of people who just don't know how to communicate.
This is so awful, but yeah.
Yeah, they only know to be referred to by their prison number or the cell number or something like that. So they're asking, I can't remember what the person was asking, but it was something, and just the person's happy to be eating something, I guess, and they literally just can't communicate.
It's so disturbing. Yeah. It's so awful that humanity is capable of these kind of systematic crimes.
Yeah.
And it's in a lot of parallels to Jews who were freed after Nazi Germany. There's now worries that people are eating too much too quickly and they're going to die because they've been surviving on potatoes and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is horrific to think about what has happened, and also for people to come to terms. Some people thought that family members were dead and they're still alive, but in what state? There's just all these efforts to kind of drop people off in the city that they were in, but hopefully people are still there to receive them. It's just it's so heartbreaking on a human level.
Yeah, I will say, so one thing that that troubles me that I've seen is some people, it seems online there's a little bit of a tendency to see Israel immediately invaded Syria more deeply and has been striking Syria more heavily. And I again, in the hot takes factory, people have kind of just been posting that and being see, I told you so, or that they're trying to align these rebel factions with Zionists, so
that's not a real thing. Israel's taking advantage of the chaos
exactly.
because they're fucking assholes and they want to expand.
The issue is that the issue is Israel.
Yeah.
Right? It's
by the way, this is not an endorsement of Hamas. I can't say that clearly enough. But Hamas
even supported,
released a statement saying we stand with our Syrian brothers and sisters. We support by and large, the vast majority of Palestinians in diaspora and that we follow in Palestine I've seen have been supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's just I also saw these stupid takes, and I don't want to keep on picking on leftists, so I am going to get to this other article soon, but wow, Hillary Clinton's emails predicted that this would happen, and that if this were to happen, Assad would go to Russia. And it's no shit, because he was a Russian asset. Obviously, he took refuge in Russia.
Well,
she's not some kind of fucking mastermind. Did Hillary predict? And this was the kind of point of this was saying oh, well, this was done to hurt the Palestinian cause. And it's did Hillary predict that we were going to fucking kill just scores of Palestinians? Was that part of the
Wait, Hillary knew about October 7th?
No.
Back in 2016?
But did she also know that again, I feel when people focus on this, they're missing again we are the genocide in Palestine. Like, we are the
Yeah.
main issue in the region. Like,
Well, yeah, and of
Yeah.
course he's going to abscond to Russia,
Yeah, 'cause he
right?
needed asylum, yeah.
Well, not only that, but like Russia has been supporting him, and Russia needs to be able to show that its like props in various regions would be protected if things go wrong. Now, is he like, they're probably just going to set him up comfortably, but he's like useless to them now. Kind of
Right.
like he's just like an expenditure on their balance sheets.
right.
I do wonder if they will try, because now they have to work with the new power. Like, I do wonder if Russia will stop
Well, it's
bombing Syrians and try to.
well, I think the kind of read most people have given is that it's in the same way that like Hezbollah is too busy now in Lebanon, like Russia's busy closer to home in Ukraine, and so they
Yeah.
weren't able to like get as involved. It's just like a weird accident of like, dominoes that like
Yeah.
this all kind of worked out
Yeah.
for one group in this one way.
Yeah. I say that, but then I doubt that there's going to be any appetite from whatever power develops to work with Russia again. Even if it could mean significant like foreign aid, I don't.
Probably not,
Yeah.
because they'd probably be accused of being a sadist at that point.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Wishing nothing but like healing and like the utmost healing beyond like anything I can imagine for those prisoners. Just like, oh, and this is the other thing that is like really heartbreaking. So when the rebels first came, they granted amnesty to the prison guards, and the prison guards fled immediately and put on civilian clothes. And so it's now hard to track down the prison guards, but they're needed because at this one prison specifically, the really, notorious one, it turns out that there was an underground network of prisons that people didn't know about.
Yeah.
And so like 3 stories underground, there are people who have been there for God knows how long, like probably at least hundreds, potentially thousands, and they can see them on cameras, but they can't access it. And so they're trying to, and now it's awful because like those people aren't getting food anymore because the guards are gone.
Yeah.
So I mean, they were being tortured, but they were also presumably being kept barely alive. So I mean, I've seen some Syrians posting asking for international aid, but that's not something that is going to play into anyone's kind of like game. So they're not going to get it, which is heartbreaking. But it's just awful to think about people who are like trapped in this moment that was meant to be obviously like freeing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything about that until we go to a lighter, I mean, still horrific, but lighter take from Thomas Friedman?
No, I mean, I think I share your sentiment that like Alf Mabruk to everyone who is celebrating, and like all the Syrians who are, being reunited with their families and getting to go back to their homes and are feeling a sense of possibility for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, inshallah, that there's a spread of that all dictatorships fall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, to that note, there's a few Syrians I've been following that I will link in the show notes, because I think last time we didn't really link any Syrians, and we did link some good analysts, so I'll include that if people are interested in following along.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, so this is a column by Thomas Friedman.
Great.
It is very short. It's a New York Times column.
All right. What does Thomas Friedman have to say?
All right. So first of all, let me say that so this article is called 5 Quick Takes on Regime Change in Syria. It is a few hundred words, maybe 300 words.
Is this guy like, I feel like the last thing we read of his was also just like really short. It seems like he just like wrote it in 10 minutes before a deadline.
This is what he's known for. He's been writing op-eds for the Times for like fucking years. And I think I mentioned this last time that we analyzed one, but there was a really funny AI like early on when people were like just starting to play around with AI, where you could insert a topic and it would create for you a Thomas Friedman op-ed, because that's how formulaic his writing is.
Yeah.
Very famously, he was huge proponent of the Iraq War.
Yeah.
Really big spreader of the lies that there were weapons of mass destruction. He did turn on that, but never kind of, actually he didn't fully turn on it, but he became more critical of the Bush administration. But he still was like, I don't take it back, so he's like kind of like a war hawk guy, but with like a kind of progressive, facade.
Okay.
So there's no one I really respect less in terms of their opinion about this issue. And he's kind of made a name for himself as a grifter, commenting on the Middle East without any kind of like depth.
What's he been right on in the last 20 years?
I don't know. He's got like a book called The World is Flat. Like, I feel like he just like does like stupid kind of popified takes on shit.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So the first paragraph I'm not going to bother reading because it's kind of just stupid. All right. And he says, funniest statement by any world leader so far. That award goes to President-elect Donald Trump for his social media post. Syria is a mess, but is not our friend. And the United States should have nothing to do with it. This is not our fight. Let it play out. Do not get involved. Trump's quote in all caps, of course. Attention, Mr. Trump. Syria is the keystone of the entire Middle East. It has just collapsed like a blown-up bridge, creating vast new dangers and opportunities that everyone in the region will seize upon and react to. Staying out of this is not on the menu, especially when we have several hundred U.S. troops stationed in eastern Syria. We need to figure out our interests and use the events in Syria to drive them, because everyone else will be doing just that. Broken clock right twice a day. Trump is right. Let's stay the fuck out of Syria. Like, seriously?
Yeah.
I just think that's so funny that he thinks that that's like a crazy statement to make.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know what Trump means.
Trump
Syria is not our friend. I mean,
yeah.
he's an idiot. But like, if the one good thing that comes out of a Trump presidency is the U.S. having less of an imprint on the world, even though it's going to suck for us, and I don't know if it'll be worth it, like how you make that moral calculus depending on the horrors that might happen here, but it might be a net benefit for the world, seriously. Like, there is no reason for us to get involved in this. Literally no reason for our couple hundred troops to start doing fucking anything. Like, I don't know what he's thinking. Every time he's advocated for U.S. military intervention, it has gone wrong, and he's learned like nothing.
Yeah. Maybe he means it's funny in the sense that Donald Trump tweeted that, but Trump also left troops in Syria, so it seems kind of disingenuous. But yeah, it's crazy that you're just like allowed to write, oh, we should exercise imperial might over Syria. Like, that is such a late or mid 1800s to like mid 1900s sort of take, where, you know what I'm saying?
I mean,
it's just
I guess
like,
it's also a contemporary take, but you're right. Like, the language is so like naked.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's not even trying to hide it.
No.
Yeah. No, super nuts. We need to figure out our interests and use the events in Syria to drive them.
Yeah.
So you're literally saying we need to like not
we need to figure out how we can benefit from
like not let people who like are just being released in the thousands from prison like take a second and like figure out what they want to come next. Like, we need to step in and decide what's going to happen next. Like,
again, it's like seeing the people being released from like Dachau or like Auschwitz and then being like,
right, what could we get out of this?
How's this good for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's insane. And then he says the biggest U.S. interest is that this uprising in Syria in the long run triggers a pro-democracy uprising in Iran. I think that's plausible.
You gotta hold your mic up. Yeah, there you go.
I think that's plausible. I think that's not outside of the realm of possibility. Iran already...
Read it again. Sorry, I missed it.
You were too busy telling me to increase my volume. Okay, biggest U.S. interest. This is also a no-brainer. It's that this uprising in Syria in the long run triggers a pro-democracy uprising in Iran. I would say that could be plausible, honestly. It's not outside of the realm of possibility. Iran's like regime is pretty like fragile right now.
Is it?
Yeah, if you think about the kind of like uprisings that happened 2 summers ago with like the hijab and with like young people like hating the government, it's not like outside of the realm of authority. If anything, probably what makes Iran stronger is like everyone around the world, especially the U.S. and allied powers, like constantly, you know.
I don't know. I'm agnostic to that just because
Same. It's not like a hot take. I'm just like, I wouldn't be shocked. Yeah.
I haven't seen any analysis of Iranian media or anything like that that would tell me that there's enough, popular sentiment against the government. Like, it's a fairly new government.
Oh, there is enough popular sentiment against the government. I think the question is just like...
within the country.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. The government is widely hated in Iran.
This is based on like Iranian media analysis, right? Like, not people just like saying this online.
No, but I think we saw that with the uprisings, like with the like women's freedom movement, like
for this particular government, the president that just took over months ago?
The same Ayatollah is still in charge. The president is like a nominal figure in Iran's political system.
Yeah,
he doesn't have that much power.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, all I'm saying is like I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Like,
no, same. And like I don't know. This is not a prediction. I'm just saying I don't think that's the craziest take this guy has.
It just doesn't seem to follow. Like they're two very separate countries. Like, why would this thing happening in Syria lead to something happening in Iran? That's what
Well,
I'm saying.
I
It's
mean,
like,
the way the Arab Spring spread was from country to country with people being inspired by one another's movements.
yeah,
I
but
mean,
these guys
Iran
aren't
is not
Arab.
Arab. Yeah,
Iran
that's
is not
true.
Arab, and
Yeah,
also the Arab Spring did not go to Iran. Like, it's
that's
just,
true.
so
Yeah,
I just don't understand it.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, his take, of course, after that, a few lines later, is we need to shape that struggle. Common theme. We need to get involved.
This guy's so stupid. Like, okay. Does he say how?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Nice.
The
Okay.
events in Syria, on top of Iran's military defeat by Israel, okay, whatever, have left Tehran naked. This means that Iran's leaders will now have to choose quickly between rushing for a nuclear bomb to save their regime or getting rid of the bomb in a deal with Trump if he takes regime change off the table. That is why, Mr. Trump, to put it in your typeface, we can't have nothing to do with this.
We can't have nothing.
He's quoting Trump there.
Oh.
Again, I got the opposite take. We absolutely can have nothing to do with this. I can't wait. I hope that's what comes out of this situation, is for us to have less and less of a role in fucking up this region of the world.
Wait, so he's saying that we can force Iran to the negotiating table because it's been weakened by Israel and make them get rid of a nuclear bomb?
He's saying that either Iran will have to get rid of the nuclear bomb or we have to install regime change.
We have to install regime
I think that's what he's
change.
implying. We need to shape that struggle. Iran's leaders will now have to choose quickly between rushing for a nuclear bomb to save this regime. Oh, he's saying that this is somehow going to affect the nuclear deal in Iran. But I think he's basically saying we can't take regime change off the table. Which, again, I don't know why we think that we uniquely are endowed with the power to change other people's governments. But that's not something we should have ever been doing. I'm thrilled to think that the collapse of U.S. imperialism might be meaning that we'll be doing that less. I don't bizarre take. And like you said, what a crazy thing that this is like in the most prestigious newspaper in our country, that this is just like a regular column that he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay, I'm going to skip over this next one because it's not that interesting or that big of a hot take. All right, and then my biggest worry expressed in a single headline. That goes to Haaretz, which is like the main newspaper in Israel that is like somewhat center relative to Israel. That goes to Haaretz in Israel. Post-Assad Syria is in danger of being run by out-of-control militias. Now this is his voice, Friedman. We are at a moment in the history of the Middle East where there are many countries that I would describe as too late for imperialism, but they failed at self-government. I am talking about Libya, Yemen, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Somalia, and Sudan. That is, no foreign power is going to come in and stabilize them, but they have failed at being able to manage their own pluralism and forge social contracts to create stability and growth.
Mm-hmm. Well, you see, these Arabs, they live in what's called the Sotatic Zone. And it's because the climate, it's a hot band of climate.
Wait, it's actually so close to that. A sentence later, he says that many countries have descended into a Hobbesian state of nature.
Yeah. So it makes them a lot more irritable and more inclined to act on their base instincts is the problem. So
yeah, Somalia is not in the Middle East, by the way. And like, what do a lot of these countries have in common? Lebanon. Yemen, Lebanon. Our intervention is a common thread in a lot of the places that he is mentioning.
Yeah, it's funny. He doesn't at all mention
Iraq. He has the gall to mention Iraq.
He just says that like ambiently, like these guys. He's like, I'm scratching my head about this, but they have something in common that makes, and I think it's just that they are innately just incapable of self-governance. I don't think they have anything else in common between all of these countries. There's nothing I can think of that would make their governments, dysfunctional or like reliant or like, have some sort of dictator or their economies are in shambles. It's not that they're all post-colonial states and they're all under several sanctions that affect the larger population. That can't be it.
Yeah.
I think it's just because the Arab mind is incapable of democracy.
I mean, you're right. It's like very close to that. That's definitely the subtext. And I mean, also too late for imperialism, as in like what? It's too late for them to be recolonized. I mean, by the way, they're not too late for imperialism. Like Iraq suffered from our imperialism. Like,
Yeah.
like what is? And he advocated for it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
If anyone else was as bad at their job as people like this,
Yeah.
it just like
He would have been so happy if he had been born 150 years
for
ago.
sure he would have been a colonial
And was just like an
yeah.
emissary like of Britain, like just and lived in colonial India.
That's definitely his
Yeah.
his take. Yeah.
He would have loved that.
Yeah, he's doing his best with the cards he was dealt.
Who's too late for imperialism? Is it
This man? You're
Is it
right. He's
these
actually talking about himself.
yeah.
He is the imperialist that he wants
God.
inside.
Ugh.
You know, when you like are angry, but it's really more about your own issues. I
Yeah.
think that's what's happening here.
I wish he could have experienced that.
Yeah, I bet he would have been great. He would have written really infuriating little like
Yeah.
gazetteers and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we get to have the benefit of him writing for the Times every Sunday, so
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
All right, next up, I have a TikTok video for you.
Oh, we're done with Thomas.
We're done with Thomas.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it. It was short. That was the last point.
Okay.
Was that they were too late for imperialism.
Damn.
I have a TikTok video for you.
Okay.
I have a TikTok burner account. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. What?
This is my reveal.
How long have you had a TikTok burner account?
Like maybe like 6 months. But I don't go on it. I just have it so that when you send me TikTok videos.
6 months?
Yeah. I have it so that when you send me TikTok videos. Do you ever wonder why I can open TikTok
That's
videos?
true,
Yeah,
actually,
so I can see them.
Okay.
And then I have it, for like
What's your TikTok burner name?
I can show you.
Did you just keep
I don't want to tell anyone because then it wouldn't be a burner account.
Is it Muslim Kitten?
No. Why does someone named Muslim Kitten follow you?
Oh.
That's me.
It's Sexy Professor.
It is not.
It is Sexy Professor _ Islam.
That's definitely not it.
Wow.
Anyway, I'm never
Okay.
on TikTok.
Follow Yasmin on TikTok.
I'm never
Did you
on.
see TikTok is gonna be banned?
Are they going through with it?
I think starting, I can't remember if it was December 19th or January 19th. But
They're not going to sell to like a
I don't know. I haven't seen.
Okay.
I think they've given them the ultimatum.
the Gen Zs are going to revolt.
Maybe.
This is
maybe
going to bring them to the streets.
Maybe we'll have our own revolt.
We might. A pro TikTok revolt. They're going to be like, we need the 30-second videos.
Yeah, and then they'll call it a China-backed.
Oh, they will
But,
for sure. Yeah.
Anyway, okay. What's this TikTok?
All right. So anyway, this is a really fun video I saw. What's the best way to do this? I mean, I guess later on you can input the audio, but for now I might just
No. You need to just get it to the beginning.
and then watch together.
Turn the volume up on your phone.
Okay.
I am at the Palestine Convention being held outside of Chicago by American Muslims for Palestine, which is a group currently facing a congressional probe for its alleged ties to Hamas, which really is the elephant in the room here. No one seems to want to talk about Hamas. In fact, most, if not all, of what they seem to want to talk about is Israel.
The past 11 months of this genocide has lifted the veils to show you that the Zionist system within the United States, there's a perception of power and then there's real power.
It's a pretty hostile media environment. That's why I'm whispering. I'm also covering my hair because this is a pretty observant crowd. Right now, you're hearing the call to prayer. The themed everything, watermelon themed everything. And this is really an opportunity for people to get excited about.
She just said there's watermelon themed everything, and then she zooms in on like a bucket of Sour Patch watermelons. She's acting like she's been abducted.
I know.
It's insane.
Let me finish it.
She's like, I'm whispering because if they hear me and find out that I'm a Jew, I don't know what they'll do to me. Also, she's like, they don't want to talk about Hamas.
I mean, that's the funniest thing is like no one there is a fucking sleeper cell agent of Hamas, and that's what she's looking for. So
Yeah.
obviously no one's like, she's like, they want to talk about Israel.
Yeah.
Because they're there because there's a genocide happening because of Israel.
Yeah.
Because there's programming for kids as young as 3, for teenagers, also for college students. They have a campus activist track. There's been a lot of discussion about how to prepare for.
The audio is terrible. Okay, sorry. I don't know if should we keep playing? Is there anything else?
No, that's enough. Yeah.
Okay.
I just thought it was super funny. Like, I can guarantee you, no one made this woman wear a hijab. She just like is doing it But white women love to wear hijab, man. I don't know why.
I think she was just doing it because she maybe likes the way it looks.
She's allowed to give. I mean, she looks good in hijab. I will say, not everyone does.
No one would recognize Bari Weiss if.
This is not Bari Weiss.
Oh, who is this? Is just a journalist.
This is just a journalist, quote unquote. Who, yeah. So I actually don't know if she's Jewish. Yeah.
I see. Okay, I thought you said it was Bari Weiss.
So it's Bari Weiss's media company called Free Press.
Oh,
this woman is named Olivia Reingold. She does kind of look like Bari Weiss, to be honest, but she's not.
Does she?
A little bit. She looks like a younger version. No disrespect to Bari in that respect.
No, all due disrespect.
But yeah, she's really pretty. It's hard to like. I don't look great in hijab. I've got big cheeks, but she I like. There are clearly in the video, like, not everyone was wearing hijab. It's not like it is a conference of Muslims who are engaged with Palestine, which is not every Palestine conference, but like no one is forcing her to do that. And it's just like so funny that she's pretending she's like a wartime correspondent that has to like assimilate to the local culture.
It kind of reminds me. So I'm reading this for research. I'm reading this book by Sir Richard F. Burton. And he's this like old school Orientalist adventurer who was hired by like the British East India Trade Company, and was also like hired by the British government or whatever. Essentially, like getting sponsorships to go live in North Africa and travel the world and all this stuff. And so the reason I got it is because he's written a first-hand account of going on Hajj in like the mid 19th century, which is something I'm interested in for a project that I'm working on.
A screenplay.
Yeah, but this guy like pretends to be Muslim and pretends to be Arab, and like he goes through all these like lengths to assimilate. And one of the things he does is like he first of all, he like the Sotatic Zone thing, he like has this theory that people live in this like hot climates or whatever, and it makes them more prone to pederasty and sodomy. And he has like these theories on like the sexual proclivities of especially like Arab men, and all this like repressed or like homosexuality or whatever.
Is that also linked to the environment? Is it like because they're hot or something?
Yeah,
like physically,
I
like
think
they're
it just
overheating.
Makes generally like base and like you're more savage.
When you're cold, you're less sexual.
Maybe you'd have to ask him.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can try to get some sort of sponsorship from the State Department to go to Sweden and figure it out.
Yeah.
But he goes there and pretends to be a doctor in like Egypt. And I think independently, I don't think this is what the government like sponsored him to do, but I think he just like tried to do research on the sexuality of these people and was like measuring like men's dicks in like North Africa.
You know that Shakespeare quote, "Me doth think the lady protests too much."
Yeah, exactly. Like
it's like, oh, I had to research.
He's just like all these fucking homosexuals and like they're just like
different sized penises that have to be categorized.
I have to look at every single one of their dicks and measure them. And so he does that. And then once he gets like the okay to go on Hajj, because they want him to find out, like at that point, none of the maps like knew what was happening in like modern day Saudi Arabia and like the Gulf or whatever. And so he was supposed to like go and figure it out. Anyway, he pretended to be this like Sufi sheikh. And then
wow, he didn't just pretend to be Muslim. He was like, let me be like a high ranking.
Well, he says because he's like, oh, Sufis are kind of can be seen as erratic or like, you know, they get like a certain amount of leniency.
I see. And he
so
figured that would give him more leeway.
Exactly. He joined some order that he like joined.
Oh, he actually joined the order? Wow.
Yeah, and then he like got the I guess his sheikh certificate, you know? And he I think he eventually got like adult circumcised.
Wow.
So he like
it sounds like he kind of did convert to Islam and kind of was gay. But anyway, continue.
So he sounds like a gay convert.
Yeah.
Which
we love. We love that. But yeah.
That's it. I was just like,
so you're getting those vibes of like, I gotta be underground.
Right.
I gotta be, yeah.
But it's just like you're kind of I think you just want to you just wanna hang
cosplay or
out.
something.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But yeah, the watermelon, like the fear of the watermelon and kufia stuff, but especially the watermelon candy was so funny. The like camera pan over to like the watermelon like
Has anyone-
sour gummies.
Has anyone protested the Sour Patch watermelons? Is,
She's starting the movement. I don't know. She's getting it started.
They still make them, right?
I think so. Yeah. I
They
never really
didn't
liked
stop.
them, but you know.
I like them.
That's good. We should get some.
Except I feel like they're less sour now than they
I
were
feel
when
that
I
way
was a
too.
kid.
I think things are getting less sour.
Or maybe our taste buds changed.
Maybe. Also, this is such a classic Orientalist move, but she's like the call to prayer, as if it's something scary, as opposed to like they're all just Muslim at the convention, so some people are praying. Like, why do you give a shit? Like,
It's like that PragerU video that Corey and I reviewed. That was just like, oh, they say the Bismillah prayer at school, and you're just like, okay,
right?
Like, what?
I mean, how about I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, like
Right.
and under God,
Yeah.
yeah. So funny. I thought that was some little nicely needed humor. She got panned. I mean, I first saw it because people were screenshotting it and sharing it on Twitter.
Yeah.
And then I had to find the original video, and it was just as good as I thought it would be. And again, like, not to like beat a horse to death, but like,
Beat a dead horse.
oh, sorry, that
Yeah.
makes more sense. I don't condone violence against horses. I just can't remember idioms. I apparently do this pretty often.
Yeah.
I don't know.
you don't just, you don't just beat a horse to death.
I would never, guys. Horse.
Yeah.
I actually really want to ride a horse.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like, she just is expecting everyone to care about Hamas, but like most people involved in Palestinian activism like just care about the genocide and like want to support Palestinians.
Right.
Like, I just think it's so funny that she's like, no one will talk to me about Hamas. They're just talking about Israel. And it's like, that's why they're there, to talk
Yeah.
about Israel and the atrocities that are being committed. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's so blatantly obvious. Sometimes the thing that is the obvious answer is the obvious answer.
Well, this is, I mean, just kind of gets back full circle to what we were saying about Mossad earlier, right? Is just people are just like talking about what's right in front of our eyes, and it's not all that radical, and it's not really something that you can refute. And so they try to take this position of like, oh, these people are just Hamas supporters. They try to make it political in a way that they can have some substantive disagreements with it, because they don't know and they don't have substantive disagreements with people just clearly stating what is in front of everyone now, right?
Yeah,
like, you just
completely.
can't. And so,
If she had found even one person who said something pro Hamas, that would have been in the video.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, completely. I think also this idea, because like a lot of the comments, some of them, I mean, she ended up kind of getting trolled a lot, so that was great. But there were comments who were like, this is so scary that this is happening in America.
Yeah.
This is happening in an American city. And it's like, have you heard of APAC? Like,
conference?
have you heard of like conferences that are like linked to like, nations abroad and to causes abroad that have like ridiculous amounts of power? Like everyone has a right to assembly, and this is like just a group of it seems like mostly people and activists, like not even like
Yeah.
people who are like have undue political influence. Like, it just, like, why can't they assemble? Like,
Yeah.
because they're mostly Arab and mostly Muslim? Like,
It bears reminding that Bari Weiss founded a university based on the principle of free speech and free thought.
allegedly, right?
Yeah.
In Texas. I haven't heard much about it though, so I don't think it went very well.
I don't know.
I had
Couldn't
like
tell
a
ya.
whole thing with some friends that we were gonna try and go there just for fun, but that would be an expensive bit.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I had for her. Anything else to say?
Come on the pod, Barry.
I will say this is unusual in that usually Ahmed is the one who mostly gets our podcast material, but I am in full force procrastinating, so I was really excited to plan this episode.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Instead of writing a overdue writing deadline I had a lot of fun
I
finding
tried
stuff for this.
to even get you to shift your schedule so that you finished your writing before we record, and you're
I
like,
said
no.
no.
But I
gotta
actually do
commit.
have to go for something later tonight, so
Yeah,
I guess that
worked
works
out.
out.
All right, last thing I wanted to talk about is our man Luigi.
Luigi.
Yeah. So the a suspect, not confirmed, but a suspect has been found
You
for
gotta
the
hold your mic right here.
for
There you
the
go.
shooting,
Yep.
the killing of a healthcare CEO in New York. Was that just a few days ago? So much happens all the time.
First of all, we want to say rest in peace to our boy Brian Thompson. All he ever wanted was for people to have health care.
I will say a bit of a different tone, just because I want to be clear where I personally, like, yeah, we don't condone murder, obviously.
Heaven gained another angel.
But I mean, I think there's a reason why people really across the political spectrum have been celebrating the CEO's death. And, it points to the fact that, like, a lot of us are getting killed by our healthcare system.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't have a ton to say that hasn't been said, but I found, like, a really interesting little tidbit, and I can't know this for sure because I think all of this is still, like, kind of alleged and stuff.
Yeah.
But apparently one of the things that really radicalized him, have you read about this? Against the healthcare system.
Yes, actually, I will state that. Maybe we have the same thing, but this guy. So if it is Luigi, he and I are brothers in having back surgeries at a very young age, and people are speculating that something related to his back surgery, his spine surgery, led to him being radicalized enough to take out a CEO. And I gotta say, just personal experience is not only is it.
Don't say anything incriminating, Ahmed, because you are not a killer. But continue.
I'm saying I can sympathize with the frustration at the insurance industry, because for me, I had to wait quite a while in pain, literally 24/7 pain with a spinal injury for at least 3 months, when I was sleeping for 2 hours a night, maybe, just out of sheer necessity. Otherwise, I was not really able to sleep, which obviously affected a lot of things, including appetite and ability to, like, just focus or be happy. I could not really sit upright. I had to kind of lay on the couch quite a bit. I was miserable. And
this was like in your early 20s, right?
This was when I was 23, 24. And one of the reasons that I had to wait for so long is because it needed to become a medical necessity for me to get treatment, so that insurance would cover it. And it just got worse and worse. And I also suffered quite a bit of nerve damage on the right upper part of my body because of the particular nature of the injury. The nerve was pinched and dying, one that innervated like the C6 and 7 on the right side of my body. I
have to imagine also that waiting so long kind of probably caused further health effects.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because it
like
was
more. Oh, I see.
Because
more
it was
of an
constricted
atrophy.
for longer. The nerve dies as it's constricted, right? So it's like choking the nerve. And then I finally got the surgery. And then for the next at least year, I was getting billed from a lot of different people, and just things that you can't understand the cost of what you're getting, right? And I rolled up to this. I was told this story the other day, but I rolled up to the surgery again in pain, barely even able to hold my own fucking head up on my neck.
Baby.
And they were like, "You have to pay us $2,000 right now." And I was just, I didn't have just $2,000. So I had to put it on my credit card.
Oh, baby.
And I was just like, okay, whatever. Like, this is the day of the surgery. Like, I go in for the surgery, and I was just like, I thought insurance was covering this. They're like, we have to pay us upfront $2,000. And then I was like, is this just the only cost of the surgery? And they're like, we can't tell you that. And I was like, okay. So I had no idea how much this is going to cost. And and then it was a game of like getting billed by all these different people who consulted on the surgery who I didn't know were going to be there. The anesthesiologist billed separately, and then you pay some of them, and then they're like, oh, you overpaid, and then they take a year to like pay you back, but then others like bill you over and over again, and like you don't know if you're overpaying.
Criminal. Yeah.
So I can understand what might lead someone who is not only dealing with pain that like drives you nuts. Like back pain is one of those things that you just cannot escape or not think about. And it really drives you crazy, on top of how much the insurance extraction cartel scheme, like just also drives you crazy. I'm surprised it took this long for something like this to happen.
And there has been a lot of like commentary about how funny it is, like what an American thing that gun violence is the way that this problem is being like that brought this problem to like the forefront of like media talking about it. But it is something that is just like unsustainable and has reached a saturation point that like I feel like it has to change. I mean, it's just like it's a system that is so corroding and like falling in on itself. And just how can you have a healthy citizenry when literally people can't access basic healthcare? It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's like it's a parasite on society. All these administrative roles within the healthcare system that contribute nothing. The figure I heard on this earlier today actually is $500 billion a year that does not actually contribute to people getting at better care at all, right? So we could save that by nationalizing the health insurance industry and actually providing people care, and it wouldn't cost us. It would cost us less than what we're paying now collectively.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot what I was gonna say.
No, I think it's helpful to hear about your personal experience. And yeah, I mean, again, like I don't feel like there's not much that we have to say because it is so clear that so many people are like resonating in this moment with like what it was a murder. Yeah. And so while that is a little bit like rough and like a little bit icky, honestly, it's also kind of understandable. Like it feels like, like.
Oh, yes. Yeah, totally. I think I agree with you that like I am just like mostly categorically like anti-violence. Like I don't want to do violence. I don't promote it as a tactic. That's different than understanding whether or not violence is going to happen in the system that we created, right? Like it's just part and parcel of like what's been happening. And as like class antagonisms heighten and as people are more and more desperate, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be shocked and clutch my pearls when things like this happen, because the ultimate violence that is being done is by the capitalist class. Like no one says anything about the 60,000 plus people a year who die from being uninsured or underinsured.
Right.
Or from people who suffer or choose suffering because they can't seek treatment for what's bothering them, or because the way that insurance and all this stuff works now today incentivizes doctors to spend less and less time with their patients. And so even if you do have a primary care provider, you may not go because now they just pop in for like 5 minutes and they're like, do you need me to write your prescription? And they just look at you and then they fuck off.
Right. I mean, the doctors are also stuck in a system that doesn't work. I mean,
they don't like it.
Yeah, they don't like it either. Yeah, no, I think you're right. And then also just kind of thinking about the gun violence portion of it. Like the gun violence is horrific, but also like our teachers are subject to gun violence. Our children are subject to gun violence. Like not shocking that CEOs eventually would also be subject to gun violence. Like we all live in all live in a system. Like we are all victims in the US of gun violence, you know.
I think what's going to happen is just based on some of the press conferences I heard of the NYPD, who, by the way, like are having a blast. They're having such a good time because this is like a really made for TV like thing where they couldn't find him at first, and then he had written all these messages on the bullets, and that was like really titillating.
And I mean, it was for us too, to be fair.
Yeah,
he did a good narrative.
No, I know. Like, and like the NYPD detectives are like, oh boy, like this guy really knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
They're like I don't know if you ever saw like the South Park episode of the Hardy Boys.
No.
Where they're like, oh,
I read the Hardy Boys back in the day.
I'm getting a big raging clue right here.
Oh,
like they're just like getting hard as they're finding more and more. I'll put a clip in there.
Oh, God.
But anyway, this is just like what it kind of reminded me of, because they were just like so genuinely excited. But and also because of the backpack that was found in Central Park with like all the
Monopoly money. Unclear if that was him or not, but yeah, definitely was made to seem like it was him if it wasn't.
Exactly. apparently the backpack that people thought he was wearing sold out online, so it's like maybe people bought it and like did that or something like that, and we're trying to help plant fake clues. I don't know. Anyway, one of the things you hear in the press conferences is before they found him is, we just maybe don't have enough surveillance technology, and we don't have like adequate means of surveillance for these sorts of things. And to me, my like little whatever sirens go off, because if anyone can afford to invest in more surveillance tech and mercenary like bodyguards and paramilitary like bodyguards and forces like that to have them follow around and make these things ever present in our lives in a more acute way, is it's rich CEOs and capitalists. So I do think that's going to be the outcome of this.
Inshallah, maybe another outcome, just putting a positive wish forward for the world, is that people will take more seriously our healthcare crisis. But,
they won't. No,
unlikely.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to talk about the Democratic Party again, but again, like they've just all but abandoned anything like Medicare for all.
I don't see Trump like particularly getting invested in universal health care either.
Oh,
so,
no.
Yeah. Not much to look forward to. But
totally not. Like, no, Trump's tactic is going to be the surveillance. Like, we need to crack down on things like this, because obviously he's a billionaire and he sympathizes more with these people. But like the Democrats, who are supposed to like actually somewhat give a shit about this, the solution is Medicare for all. Right. Like nationalize the healthcare system.
Right. Which like Obamacare, in my opinion, was like a step towards that, but not far enough. And we haven't like picked up the mantle or continued it. Like it did insure a lot of people who weren't insured, but obviously
through private systems.
I know it obviously didn't fix the structural problem.
Anyway,
we end on that note with back sympathy.
Well, apparently he was very inspired also by Ted Kaczynski. One of his Goodreads reviews was
the Unabomber.
was his manifesto, and he was like, this guy has some points. So it does seem like the guy they got might be him, and they apparently also found him in the McDonald's with like a manifesto that he had written and a gun that they think is similar to the one that was used.
Sorry to cut you off. A lot of these like killings though by these people who are radicalized, like they are so over the map politically.
Yeah.
And I just think it shows like that we live in a violent society where like anyone who gets radicalized, like they don't even have to have like ideologically maybe that's always been true, I don't know, but like I was just thinking about like the Trump assassination. That guy was like so confusing, like
very confusing. Yeah,
this guy's a little bit more clear, but he's also like very into like self-help podcasts.
He was very into Andrew Huberman.
Yeah, I don't know much about him, honestly.
Yeah, and Lex Friedman. Like it was confusing because I saw his Twitter and I was just like, this does not line up with the guy who would also read like an anarchist manifesto and be like, I gotta fucking. So I don't know.
Because it was a problem when you have so many guns. I guess like anyone can just kind of go a little off the deep end and then just like, yeah. Because it doesn't like hang together. It's not like he's not clearly a leftist or clearly someone to the right. I mean, I guess to be fair, I guess the thing that is consistent is that he just like hates the healthcare system. Maybe that's enough. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think just largely like, okay, one more note on people celebrating this. And I think you said it, right? It's indicative of a fundamentally, almost universally, people were like, if you saw something, no, you didn't. Or like, sorry, my sympathies are out of network. Or
a lot of jokes. Yeah.
A lot of jokes and like truly not giving a shit about this person who was a paragon of the health insurance industry that, again, just like destroys people's lives and is largely understood to be a force in destroying people's lives. This is something that someone needs to campaign on, right? There is a popular sentiment against
100%.
This sort of parasitism in our society, and all people can do is understand it as like, look at these baboons who are just hooting for violence in the streets. They just want to see blood, and that's all they care about. And they don't understand it as like, no, like people are suffering.
Yeah, I think,
and it's bipartisan, and
it's
it's popular. Like,
Yeah.
no one feels sorry for this motherfucker. Like, even Ben Shapiro tried to post. Did you see this?
no.
Maybe I'll slide a clip in if I find it, because I haven't looked. I just kind of saw people talking about it. But Ben Shapiro tried to post a video saying like, all these leftists are out here celebrating the violence and they're fucking blah, 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 blah. And like all the comments from people watching his video, his audience, are just like, yeah, you got this one wrong. You're a fucking idiot.
The left-wing reaction to the murder of Brian Thompson. Anthony Zankis is a professor at Columbia. He put out a tweet saying, quote, "Today, we mourn the death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, gunned down. Wait, I'm sorry. Today, we mourn the death of the 68,000 Americans who needlessly die each year so that insurance company executives like Brian Thompson can become multimillionaires." So that would be, basically, he deserved to die because United Healthcare is a mildly profitable company. When I say they're a mildly profitable company, I mean that when it comes to the health insurance industry, the profit margin is generally below 2%. You're not talking about industries where the profit margin is 10, 15, 20%.
So this is clearly something that is not a left-right issue.
It's not. Yeah.
These people are despised by everyone. And I'll stop there before I say something.
Yeah, be careful. Okay. I don't want anything to...
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I saw someone that you follow a lot, Bad Faith, Brianna Gray. What's her last name?
Brianna Joy Gray.
Brianna Joy Gray. Yeah, she had this kind of comment of like, this clearly shows that people could support like Medicare for all. Like, this is like something that's bipartisan that people should like, pick up and capitalize off of this. Not even capitalize, just like productively channel into something positive, Yeah.
What a novel idea.
Yeah.
I don't think the Democrats will listen. Oh, I wanted to say one last thing. Separate subject is, did you see that the Vatican's nativity scene has a keffiyeh under baby Jesus?
I did. It's very sweet.
But isn't it anti-Semitic?
No.
Oh.
And I don't, no, obviously not.
Do you think he's trying to say that baby Jesus would have joined Hamas?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I thought
just
maybe that's what
saying
he was saying.
I think you're just saying that, poor Palestine is being bombarded, and that's where Jesus was from.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Should we put a keffiyeh by the nativity scene out here?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
There's like a really big one.
It's massive. It's like life size.
they actually built like
I've
a
never
house.
seen one so big. Yeah.
And I was
kinda
talking
weird.
to you and a friend of ours about the irony of them displaying this like family that is homeless.
Yeah.
And like this, it's by the U.S. Steel building, I think, right?
Yep.
And they essentially built a house for this, like a real sized house to display this like scene about a homeless couple that couldn't find a house. And I'm like, there are so many homeless people in downtown Pittsburgh. Like, it just seems something about it seems perverse. But okay, yeah, maybe we'll
drape them.
Drape a little keffiyeh over there.
It's not a bad idea.
Anyway.
All right, y'all. Stay warm.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.